Should you date while you're going through therapy and working on healing? Well, the short answer is no, but you don't have to wait until you're completely done with therapy either. So, when is the right time to start dating? Today, I'll be teaching you why you should wait to date and the 3 ways to know that the timing is right. So, stay tuned. Great to have you back on the podcast. Here we are. This was a question that was written to me briefly. I'm actually going to read the question. And and this happens a lot. You guys write to me or you DM or do something, and all of a sudden there's like 50 people with the same question or the same idea or whatever, same theme. And this is one of those today. And by the way, excuse my voice. I know I think I sound a little sick, but I feel okay. I've had a stuffy nose. So, hey, this is how I sound today. All right, so I'm going to read you this question. And someone wrote in, she said, "Hey, Abby, in case you're looking for any ideas for your next video, I was wondering if you can do one on whether people who are currently going through therapy and working on healing should still date. I'm on my journey to heal my childhood trauma, and sometimes I feel like I have so much more work to do. And just curious if I should hold off on dating until I'm a bit more sane or something." And she does a little LOL. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to cover a lot of different things that I've also covered in other videos, but I'm going to sort of bring them together here and then refer you back to kind of some longer learning. But like I said, the short answer is no. And as most of you know, I still see clients. And that is, I think, what separates me from a lot of people who do podcasts and that kind of thing. And I hope you're not listening to celebrities talk about what to do in your relationships. It makes me crazy. So I'm not only trained and have almost 40 years of experience. I'm right there, actually. I am at 40 now. I just realized that. But I still see people. So I'm in the trenches. I still know what's going on. It's not something I'm talking about from 20 years ago. And here's what I know. You attract where you are. And I'm going to give you the science. So I know law of attraction, and we've all heard, there's a lot of bullshit flying around out there. Oh, I want a bike. I think about a bike. I get a bike. Yeah, I'm not that law of attraction girly. I am very different, again, based on the science and neurochemistry, as well as some of the psychological tendencies we have. But when I did my Tedx, and if you haven't seen that yet, I hope you go watch it. And if you like it, give it a like. You can find it on YouTube, Abby Medcalf TED Talk. I talk about the real reason relationships fail. And in that, it's 12 minutes. So go watch me. In that, I talk about this. This was taught to me, God, I think 30 years ago, and I'm still using it. And so when I do the TED Talk, I have a big board behind me, so you'll see a visual of that a little better. But I'm going to say it out loud, and you'll still get it. So we think of relationships as a simple addition problem, because we say things like my better half, my other half, she completes me. These things that make me want to throw up in my mouth. And the problem with that is that there's this idea, I put in 50%, they put in 50%. We hear a lot of this 50-50 thing, this half thing, your half plus my half equals this beautiful whole. But no, if you have ever been in a long-term relationship, it ain't no simple addition problem. Relationships are complex. They are synergistic. There's so much there. So really, I want you to think of it as a multiplication problem. And if you have a half times a half, if you remember your 3rd grade math, you'll know that that's a quarter. And hopefully you know that a quarter is less than a half. Yeah. When you have 2 half people who get together, you end up with less than you started with. And I'm telling the truth because you've been in that relationship. You might even be in that relationship now, which is why you listen to me. If you want to be in a whole relationship and it's a multiplication problem, then obviously I need a whole me and a whole you. The problem is when we are actively in a healing process, we are not at a whole. I say that with love, okay? I'm not I'm not saying you're broken or any of that other BS. I'm saying that you are not where you need to be to find a person who's worthy of where you want to be. And because I will tell you this, the people that are already a one, who are already have done their therapy or just grew up in one of those very functional families, God bless you if you did. I love you. I don't think that's many of the people listening, but maybe you did. The people that grew, who are at that place, they don't want you. They're going to go on a date with you, maybe, and you're like a fixer-upper. Healthy people don't want a fixer-upper. They don't want someone who's, really going through it and having a hard time and has a lot of stuff that they bring to the table immediately. When we heal when we've gotten through something, and you're never completely healed, don't get me wrong. Again, I'm going to talk to you about how you know when you're there in a little bit, but we give off an energy. We just do. I'm going to explain that in a minute, but that's what happens. And that person is not attracted to you. I know you're good in bed. I know you're gorgeous. I know you're fabulous. I love you. It's not about not being lovable. It is about the levels of people. I mean, there just are. And it's not because someone's better than someone else. I want to be really clear about this. It's just different people. Just people are different. So we're different maybe with our political beliefs or, our religious beliefs and we're different in our emotional bandwidth and our emotional intelligence. All of these are different things. And so you'll get there if you're doing the work, not to worry, but you have to understand that first. Okay. And I'm going to explain the science in a second. But what I want to say first is, what happens in therapy, which is wonderful, is that you start to know things. You start to uncover things. So knowing is amazing when you really go, oh my gosh, I've been choosing, when I learned, for example, all about attachment styles, and I've done a couple episodes on attachment styles. We're not going to get into it here, but I have an avoidant attachment style. I've talked about that before in the podcast. But before I knew what that was or knew I had it, I just knew I would get in relationships and I was always monogamous. But boy, I'd be with guys or women, maybe usually 18 months was my was my limit. I'd move in, there was some trauma bonding happening sometimes I'll talk about, but all kinds of stuff. And then I would be, boop, boop, oh, there was like a little time, like I was keeping time or something. And right around 18 months is usually when someone else would be like, oh, let's get married or let's get to the next. And I was like, oh, gotta go. Time for me to get out of here. And, that's what I did. And when I got to an age in my late 20s, I thought, I really actually want to, get married and have kids. I better do some therapy. And so I was in very intense, and I had already done rehabs, my heroin addiction, all that. I was a pretty damaged person, I have to say. I had a lot of issues. And I really had to do a lot of different things and I still do therapy to make sure that, I'm not some crazy person here talking shit to you, right? This is good stuff. So I'm not perfect by any means, but right? That's what happens. You grow and you change. And so when I was really ready to do that, there was, I did some more intensive individual therapy and really got to know all these things about myself that I was, ready to learn. And it really helped me. And I am much more securely attached now. I still, that is still my kind of go-to when I'm feeling anxious or insecure or something like that. When I'm having an unwanted emotion, my first reaction is to withdraw, to use myself as my own counsel and not talk to anybody about what's happening and just put on a smile. That is my first instinct. Thank God I'm with an amazing man who knows better. And I have incredible friends I've surrounded myself with who know to call me on my stuff when I go there. And it's not it, it's when I still do it. Not commonly anymore. Thank you, therapy, but I still do it. So there's a difference between that knowing, okay, so I know I have this avoidant attachment style. I know that I am afraid, from my childhood. You can connect the dots looking back, as Steve Jobs' famous commencement speech talked about, right? I can connect the dots. I can see the the line, the kind of a linearity here as to why I'm choosing the kind of partners I choose and why I'm in such short-term, monogamous, but relatively short-term, year and a half relationships, and can't seem to commit for the long term. So that was all really good. Then there's a space of believing. So now I know, and that's what happens a lot in therapy, but then you have to believe you're worthy of meeting someone who could really meet your needs. You have to believe that even exists out there, that there's trustworthy people and people who aren't out to get you, that there's people who don't want to take advantage of you, that just want to have your best interests at heart. Yeah, you got to believe that first, because if you don't, you will attract what you actually believe. We call these your limiting beliefs or your underlying belief system. And I want to be clear that a belief is just a thought you've had over and over. That's all a belief is. There's nothing magical about it. It's just this thing that you have, quote unquote, learned because of whatever childhood you might have had, and background you're coming from. And you've taken it as a fact. You've just taken it as a fact. So maybe you grew up with drug addicted parents and you couldn't trust them. And I'm thinking of a client right now who had both parents were addicts. They used to steal from her and I lied to her all the time. So you can imagine that she wasn't thinking, oh, relationships are fabulous. I can't wait to get married and have kids. She felt like the adult. She never felt like a kid. So the thought of having kids was overwhelming to her. Like, oh, I've been taking care of people my whole life. She had a sister. She took care of her. She didn't want to take care of more people because those were her beliefs about what relationships were. They were painful. They were a lot of responsibility. You couldn't trust people, right? So guess what? She kept meeting, she was a lesbian. So she kept meeting women who were taking advantage of her, who couldn't be trusted, who lied to her, because she actually believed that's what was out there. And I will proudly say through our work, she has been married now for 3 years. We started working together maybe 10 years ago, off and on. We haven't been working together steadily all that time, but she's one of my great, she's her own success story, not mine. And you all are when you're doing something. I'm glad I can be a catalyst or helpful, but you need to own that 100%. And she's someone that, it just makes me feel really good about the work I do. And they have 2 children and she loves being a mom, but she had to change her beliefs about what relationships were, what they meant, that it's a responsibility, it's a lot of work, all that stuff. And that takes time. So there's 3 things that, and I've talked about these before, I'm going to talk about them again, that really are at the heart of why this is true from a science perspective. Okay, so not like, ooh, law of attraction, this thing I learned, it's so cool. I say attraction and I talk about the law of attraction because I do believe in it, but I believe in it not for woo-woo reasons. I believe in it for science reasons. And I don't believe in it exactly the way others do. So there's 3 things. And I'm going to give a shout out to my book, Boundaries Made Easy. If you haven't gotten it yet, my latest book, I don't know what you're waiting for. I talk about these at length. And I talk about how the reason we don't keep our boundaries, one of the main reasons is because our subconscious is not aligned with our conscious brain. So what you consciously think, oh, there's lots of good men out there. But if you subconsciously grew up maybe in a home like this client I just mentioned, you don't think there's really good men out there, or women in her case. You don't think that. You can say it, again, difference between knowing and believing. You can say it, but again, you've probably had a lifetime of, this client, she had her parents. Can you imagine who their friends were? Were they trustworthy? No. Trustworthy people weren't attracted to her parents. Together people who were thriving and doing well were not attracted. So that's all she saw and what she kept creating in her life, because again, that was her limited view of what was possible. So I know. So it's, this is it. You end up seeing what you believe. So let's talk first about your reticular activating system. Again, I've talked about all these before. I'm going to do it briefly now. Your reticular activating system, or your RAS for short, is a filter between your conscious and your subconscious mind. And your RAS takes in from things you think consciously and sends it as an order to your subconscious to look for that thing. And the example I always give is if you've ever thought of buying a car and you suddenly see the car everywhere, right? It happens every time. If you think you want to buy a gray Toyota Highlander, and all of a sudden you see a bunch of gray Toyota Highlanders, like that's all you'll see. You're like, do they come in gray? I don't even know. But you know what I mean? And you're thinking, oh my God, they're like making these things. What's going on? It's because consciously you had a thought, oh, I like this car. I like this car. And so your brain goes, oh, this is important. And it sends it in this neurocircuitry to your subconscious to look for that thing, because your brain is very efficient. It doesn't want to take a lot of time focusing on the 50 million cars that are out there. It just wants to offer you up what you're thinking about. So in the same way, when I think all men suck, guess what? That is all my brain will show me. Sucky men who aren't good, because there's a lot of great men out there. I've married them. I'm raising one. I meet great men all the time in my practice, like really, really good guys, good men that I think are incredible. There's tons of them. And do I meet, a-hole men? Sure. Like I meet them too. But because I have this open idea of who men can be, I meet different kinds of men. It doesn't mean I only meet great guys. Although I will tell you, predominantly that's who I meet. It is. Because the RAS will also, so it'll show you what you're thinking about, right? It'll send it to the subconscious, and it will filter out anything that doesn't match. So if you think all men suck, when you meet a great guy, your brain will filter that person out. If you think my partner's always nagging me, right? That's all you're going to see. Your RAS, it's all it's going to show you. And it will filter out times when your partner is appreciative or says thank you or isn't nagging in some way. You'll filter that out. And I'm telling you, I've been in countless couple sessions where I'll have a wife tell a husband, let's say, you don't appreciate me, you treat me like a maid. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, thank you for dinner last night. I just took you away for your birthday, did this thing. He'll list ways that he has shown his appreciation and thank you and love for her. And she literally, it's like she's Teflon. She's like, oh, well, that's a couple things, but really this is it. Like I'm like, wait a minute. I have to stop and go, hold up. So what happens in that process is that, for example, like this process, for example, is that the man will think, oh my God, no matter what I do, it's never enough. So they stop trying. And then you really are faced with what you think. You really only see, whoop, my nose is itchy. You really only see the bad things, so to speak, because that's all that ends up showing up after a while. And there's only an occasional good thing. But you think your perception is so skewed. You think you've been right all along when actually you've been proving yourself right. And that brings us to a psychological construct. This is not a physical biochemistry one. This is a psychological one called the confirmation bias, which I've also talked about a lot, which is basically that your brain likes to confirm what you already believe. So it'll show you it'll pick out, again, utilizing the RAS, it will pick out information that matches your beliefs. I don't know. So again, you think you're seeing the world as it is. You are not. You are seeing a skewed world. Excuse me. I just burped at you. Sorry. You are seeing the world in a skewed way. And you're listening right now going, no, I don't, Abby. It really is this way. And I am telling you, the science doesn't lie. And here's the other piece that's really big that I talk about a lot. Your conscious brain processes information at a rate of 40 bits per second, while your subconscious brain processes information at a rate of 11 million bits per second. So you don't hear what people say, you hear what they mean. So, and we've all been in a meeting or somewhere where someone is saying all the right things, and the entire time we're thinking, they are so full of crap. I don't like this person. They are full of it. They're lying. How do you know that? Why do you think that? Because of this 11 million bits. So the 40 bits, just 40, is hearing what they're saying, and they're saying the right words, and all that's great. But that 11 million is picking up on that. And that is how the quote unquote attraction works. So when you are in a relationship with someone or even on a date or whatever, what's happening is if the person is saying something, is so here you are, we're going to use you. Should you date yet? You're not really healed. You're not in a good enough place to really be dating. And so you still don't think of yourself as completely worthy. And so what's happening is that is what the other person is picking up on. That you don't like, there's something off. They don't think this consciously. I want to be really clear. They're not going, they can't read your mind, but they know something's off. Something's strange. You're hesitant some way. You're talking in a way. And they're like, they just get that you're maybe lying or obfuscating or hiding something. They get this impression of you. Now, if you're out with some healthy person, that's it. They're never going to call you again. They're going to ghost you. You're never going to hear from them again. If you're out, sadly, with an unhealthy person, they're going to like it. And they're going to call you. And you're going to fall madly in love in 2 minutes. And it's going to be really bad. They're going to have poor boundaries probably or something else. Because they're likely as unhealthy as you are. And that's why you're together. That's that quarter and a quarter. That's the half and a half, but it's a multiplication problem. You end up with a quarter. So do you see where I'm going here? I just want to be really clear. So that's the work of Timothy Wilson. There's a great book, Strangers to Ourselves. It's one of my favorite books of all time. Can be a little bit difficult to read, but highly recommend. I link to it in the show notes. But these are the reasons that you think one thing is happening. And when I talk about, again, the law of attraction or that you're attracting a certain kind of person, just know I'm basing it in that science. Okay. Are we there together? Are we together here? There's nothing I dislike more than when someone comments under my video, oh, you're blaming the victim or something like that. It's like they didn't even listen to anything I said. Don't go there, okay? There was someone else who recently wrote to me. Oh, it like broke my heart. So this person wrote to me and said, I think it was a he. Pretty sure it was he. It's sometimes hard to tell given the name or what's happening, but I got the impression he was male. But whether he was or not doesn't matter. He said that when he was young, he was like 13 or 14, an 18-year-old groomed him. And, showed him a lot of porn, eventually, I think, raped him, sexually assaulted him, whatever. Or maybe, again, it was a her. Either way, it doesn't matter who this person, let's say they were raped, sexually assaulted. It was very bad for a long time. So this person has been going to therapy for many years to heal the sexual trauma, right? So great, so impressive. But one of the things they've figured out is that watching porn, being around porn is an incredibly horrifying trigger for them. I mean, talk about true trauma trigger because of what happened to them, right? Because of how this predator dealt with them. So it's huge, it's big. Can't be around porn. They themselves are really careful not to have it anywhere in their space because it's such a trigger. But what's been happening, what they wrote to me about was that they keep dating people. And then and they tell them about this boundary with porn, like, hey, can't be around it, can't watch, this is why. But then these people keep trying to trample the boundary, keep saying things to them, keep like, oh, but this video is really cool. Why don't we watch together to really spice up our sex life? I don't know what they're saying. You didn't get into that detail, but somehow the people that they're dating keep coming back trying to get them to watch porn. And they were asking me in the email what to do, like how to have these boundaries. And by the way, when you write to me, please know, I'm going to just repeat it because I feel like I have to repeat it a lot. It's highly unethical for me to give you just advice on your particular situation, just like you personally in an email. Anyone who would do that you should not be listening to, as far as I'm concerned. It's not only unethical, I don't have time, even if I wanted to. You've got to be kidding me. There's a lot of you out there. I say with love. I'm glad you're here. But, I need you to get, like, I have a life, I have a family and all kinds of things going on. I have clients I have to see. I do the podcast. I do, weekly love letter. I have a lot going on. I don't have time. I would not have time to respond to hundreds and hundreds of people, or maybe thousands sometimes, telling them what they should be doing in their life. And again, it's so unethical. So I just want to be clear. So, but what I did say to this person was that I'd be doing this video. And what I said, what really is it? So what's really at play for me with this particular person, which I think is for a lot of you, is that you're attracting people who are trampling your boundaries. That is saying to me, this person's not even ready to date. They shouldn't be dating. Wherever they are in their journey of therapy, they are not at a place yet where they have replaced their beliefs in a good way. And I'm going to talk about that in the tips at the end. Okay. So I'm going to come back to that, but I want you to see that if you're noticing that, that's a problem, right? That like you shouldn't have person after person. There should be somebody in there who's not trying to trample your boundaries if you're attracting healthy people. Right? A healthy person's gonna be like, no problem, no porn. All right. You're like, I like porn, maybe even, but okay, it's something you don't like, then we're not gonna do it, You know what I'm saying? But that's not the case here. I remember when I was first dating, and here I was, no drug, I had a really clear rule, no drugs or alcohol, that with who I was dating at the time. That's where I was then when I was looking to get married. And I would meet people, but I was just meeting people, right? Going on first dates and second dates or whatever. And they would say something, oh, you're not drinking. I'm like, nah, I'm not drinking, and and some of them would try to pressure me to drink. Well, you're not going to have one with me. It's so rude. I'm having a drink. Why don't you have a drink? They would say things like that. And that was it for me. I left dates in the middle sometimes. I was very clear. That's a place where I feel really confident and strong. And I can think of 2 dates in particular where I just said, you know what? I am really uncomfortable with the way you're trying to pressure me to drink. So I'm already can tell that this isn't going to work. And I threw some money on the on the table or whatever. And I just left. It was like, what is the point of finishing this when I'm already uncomfortable? And if you would try to push my boundary there, I know you're going to try to push it somewhere else. What I think, again, happened, and I talk about this in my Boundaries Made Easy book, where, but I'll hurt their feelings, or it's not nice, or I'd be so embarrassed to leave a restaurant in the middle, or what are you talking about? Come on now. So their feelings are more important than yours. They didn't seem to mind that they trampled your boundaries and said some bullshit to you, like tried to force, whatever they were doing with you. There's been plenty of clients I've had who said they were uncomfortable on a date, but got through the whole date. Why? Go, leave. You can say it nicely. I wasn't mean to anybody. I just was like, you know what? I'm really uncomfortable with what's happening. So I'm going to go. If you really can't even do that, then leave some money at the bar towards your tab and or at the front, and just walk out. But leave. Get yourself out of there. I'd rather you said something because I think it's good for you and I think it's kinder to the other person, frankly. But because that's just how you want to be, even if they're not being kind, you still want to be who you are. But no matter what, I would like you to go. Okay. But anyway, so when we're, I want to be clear that when you're dating, if a red flag, so to speak, shows up, you really should pay attention, because it's telling you that maybe you're not ready to date because of who you keep attracting. Because again, there are lots of good guys out there. I will tell you, I have beliefs about being in a relationship that are very positive. I have been in very positive. I've had like a couple and I've been cheated on and all that stuff. I'm not talking about when I was like really young, but in general, since I really, really started doing therapy, in my 20s, and really tried to change my life significantly, and have been doing this work, I feel very confident in relationships. So even my ex-husband and I have a really good relationship. He's an amazing, wonderful man. We weren't quote unquote meant to be or whatever. We parted very amicably for our private reasons, which I don't share on the podcast because I have children, and it's also because I respect him and it's our private life. But but as I've shared, I'm good friends with his wife, and I'm good friends with Gary, my current husband's ex-wife. Like we all get along well, and because I work on that, I make sure that those relationships are strong. But I have attracted really great men. My ex is a great guy. He's a wonderful dad. He's a very devoted. If I told him tomorrow, my ex-husband, we've been divorced a long time now, but if I told him I need your help, like I'm in trouble, I need your help, he would be there in 2 seconds. Like he wouldn't ask. He's like, what do you need? And then later he would ask me. But that's and Gary's amazing. My current. So I'm just saying I have a belief that there's lots of good guys. So I've met lots of good men, right? So yeah, I've had some dud dates who said, like I just explained and all that. It's not like I've only met perfect men, but mostly that's who I run into. So those beliefs are what's really important. Again, what you end up attracting because of the beliefs. I just want to be really clear. I don't have anything so special. I'm not so beautiful. I got nothing more than you do. Trust me. There's nothing going on that's, I of course have my fabulous sense of style, but I'm sure you do too. Do you know what I mean though? I don't, there's nothing magical about me, except that I believe I can attract great men even as I got older. I just thought I could, and I did. So I just want to make that clear that is a lot of it. I'm not special, okay? I'm not any more special than you or any more different than you. I'm not a unicorn. Okay. So eventually though, right, you need to be in a relationship, I will say, to get to the next level of your health. And so what I have found is that I've worked with people and they weren't dating, we're doing the work, we're getting there. And usually it's me, which is funny, who ends up saying to them, like, I think you should start dating. I think it's time. I'm thinking of one client in particular who's getting married now. I'm so proud of him. He just got married. I forgot. But they're having a big wedding in like Italy or somewhere. But I remember saying to him, like a year into therapy, I was like, I think you should start dating. And he was kind of like, really? I don't know. I was like, I think you're here, because you can do all the work you want. And sure enough, when he started dating and he started doing things, his old crap came up. And, but we're in therapy, so we can deal with that. And that's what happens. So you can get as perfect as you want to be or whatever. But once you start dating, you can expect to have a few steps backwards. You can expect, because now it's really getting tested. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like learning to play tennis, but never being in a game, right? Working with your coach and they're showing you how to play and you get real good at your strokes and all that. But if you've never played an actual tennis game and then you go to play a game, you're going to realize all the places you don't have skills, like in strategy or in thinking certain ways, right? Thinking on your feet, or maybe when someone hits differently than your coach did, right? Different spin or something, you're going to play different. It doesn't mean you get rid of all your fundamentals. It doesn't mean that, you shouldn't be playing. It just means that it's going to be different now. And that's what you want to keep in mind. So I do want you to date eventually. I do want you to get out there. You don't need to be done with therapy. I don't even know what done with therapy means. I never say goodbye to my clients. I don't ever have a final session with clients because I never know when they might need to come back. So, we come to a place often, maybe they'll start going every other week or once a month. And then it's just right to just end, and it's all good and love you, see you soon or whatever. And sometimes they call in a month and sometimes I don't hear from them for years and then they check in and sometimes never again. And it's okay. So how do you know when the time is right? So you've been doing therapy, you've been working on your healing. How do you know when the time is right to go to the next level, to start dating, right? So there's three, as I mentioned earlier, there's three main things, okay? The first I can do quick and easy. Your therapist gives you the okay, much like I did with this client. He didn't feel ready. He wasn't sure. And you might not have a therapist, so I want to say that. So we can just go with the other two. But if you have had significant trauma, I really do hope that you use more than like my podcast or other podcasts to help you heal. I have been very, very moved and flattered when clients tell me that they get more out of my podcast than they've gotten in years of therapy. So, it really fills my heart. I started this podcast for people who didn't have access to therapy, who that was my initial idea. That they didn't have access to good therapy, or people, what I consider good therapy, I should say, evidence-based approaches, the research is there, the experience is there, we're bringing it all together for you. That's, if you're listening, that's, I think, who you are, why you're here with me. But I do hope you have found someone. Again, if you have significant trauma of any kind, I hope you found someone to talk to, even a few sessions. But if you haven't, that's fine. The other things are going to fit. But if you have, then, really you should be asking your therapist, like, hey, I feel like I'm ready to date. What do you think? Let's talk about it. Okay. Or again, I think I bring it up more than my clients do first. It may be because they're waiting for me. I don't really know. I've never asked. So the second thing, so when do you know the time is right? Number one, your therapist says, okay, not your Aunt Mary, not your sister, okay, your therapist. All right. Number two is that, does it feel right? This is when you have to listen to your gut, okay? When you listen to your gut. Now, I did an entire episode on how to know that you're listening to your gut instinct, and I will link to it on the show notes page. Come to the podcast. It'll also be, if you're watching me on YouTube, hello, please like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And even if you don't listen to me on YouTube, if you can go on over to YouTube, it really helps to grow that audience as far as more people finding me and us creating more world peace with more people getting good information. You don't even have to listen or watch there, but I would so appreciate that. But if you are on YouTube, you can, under the video will be all the links to the resources. So just go down there. Michelle, my right hand, does a fabulous job of making sure all the goodies are there. So please go listen to that episode. But really what I talk about in the episode is this. What happens a lot, how to know if you're listening to your gut, okay? And not like your unhealthy voice. I'm going to blow my nose. I'm doing it right here on the air because we don't really edit these in that way. Sorry. But I'm not going to spend a bunch of money editing this video to get my sneeze out. I think you're blowing my nose out. I think we're all okay. Are we together? We're in a relationship. We love each other. It's all good, right? Okay. No one's traumatized. Excellent. So here's how you know you're listening to your gut. What happens a lot is that I'll have a client, let's say, in a session with me, and we're calm. They're in a calm, healthy place, right? And we're talking about, let's say, for example, whether they should leave a job. Okay, I'll use an easy one. Should you quit your job? And from a very healthy place, very calm, again, so this is their prefrontal cortex, not their fear-based brain, not their amygdala, not the fight, flight, freeze response, none of that, right? This is their beautiful thinking, logical, rational brain. We talk about the pros and cons. We talk about, what's really happening. We've been talking about it maybe in session for weeks or months or whatever. And my client makes the decision, I really need to give my notice and I'm going to do A, B, and C, I'm going to put up my resume, whatever. And then they come back and this happens all the time. They come back next session and I go, how'd it go? Did you give your notice? And they're like, I just couldn't do it. I'm really worried. I feel like, I talked to my mother and she says I'm crazy to leave this good job and I might never get another job. The market's really bad right now. Even though I'm literally thinking of a client who did this. She had 2 other jobs already. People had been headhunting her and she was afraid to leave this really toxic job. That is not your gut. Because if you can hear how scared the language is. So what happens is you always want to think of that. You don't want to make decisions from a fear-based brain, because all your fear-based brain knows how to do is fight, flee, or freeze, stay paralyzed. And that's when you get stuck in analysis paralysis like this person was. That's all you know how to do from that place. When your rational thinking brain is making a choice, is telling you, so this happens a lot if you're dating, right? You go on the date, it doesn't feel good, you feel a little put off by the person, but you're convincing yourself it's okay. And what you're doing is you're convincing yourself because you're afraid I'm going to be alone forever. Or you just saw on Instagram that your ex is dating someone and they're pregnant. Or you're feeling like, oh, I'm never going to meet anybody again. Like all that fear-based talk Fear never made any love relationship better. I will tell you that right now. But that's often what happens is that when you're rational and you're with someone who's rational, you're having a good conversation, your thinking brain is turned on. That is your true feeling. That's your gut. That's your, whatever you want to call that. That's your good stuff. That's the quote unquote right decision or healthiest decision. I hate the word right because there's just decisions, but there's healthier decisions. But when your fear brain takes over and you start to get into all that other stuff, then you don't make good decisions, right? You don't make healthy ones for you. You think, oh, it wasn't that bad. He only said the one thing on the date. But he really has all these other pieces that I want. Sorry. My nose is still stuffy. You hear where I'm going here? And you've done it. I know you've done it. Like, I know you're listening going, oh my gosh, that's so me. I also did an episode on trauma bonding, which also happens when we're not in healthy places. And this is often when we do, the love bombing happens when we're just we stayed up all night talking till 6 a.m. and we just had such a connection and you can't describe the connection. Trauma bonding, I want you to go back and listen to that episode, but trauma bonding is not bonding over the same trauma. Oh, they were a sexual abuse survivor and so was I, and so we had this great talk. No, that is not. It could be a form of trauma bonding, but most trauma bonding is just that your particular background in trauma matches up with someone else's particular background in trauma. The most obvious examples of this are when someone who has a drug and alcohol problem that they have because of their trauma is in a relationship with someone whose mother maybe was an alcoholic or dad was an alcoholic. So they're not, but they're highly codependent. That is trauma bonding. Those two get together and they fall deeply in love. It's very quick. It's very soon. Everything is amped up right away. That's a problem, right? So you could be thinking, oh, I'm making this from such a happy place, this decision to be with this person. But again, I need you to sort of step back and go, is this healthy? Is this in my greater good? Because you can feel yourself where you can't think of anything else. You are completely obsessed with this person. You maybe miss work. You stop talking to your friends. You maybe start to drink a little more than you usually do with this person. You know what I mean? If you take a closer look, it's just that feeling of being in love, quote unquote, which is not, it's limerence, it's in lust. I have other episodes on all that and the biochemistry of that, but it feels so good. It's hard to let it go. I know, I get it. I've been there too. I've done it, but it's imperative that you really take a step back, right? And again, from any of that, we just have, whenever you hear that language, whenever I hear that language, it terrifies me. When someone says, oh, they're just so charismatic. We just had this really special bond. It's different than I've ever felt. Terrifies me as your friend, therapist, person on the internet, whatever you call me. Very scary. And you should be scared too. If you can't come up with, I say all the time, that is when you have your list of your perfect person, like my dream person, if you sat down today and wrote down, here's all the things I want in a love relationship. Here they are. Okay. And get over, they're 6 feet tall. They're what I don't care about that. That's crap. I'm talking about other stuff, right? You in that list have things like they always have my back. I feel safe with them. When we disagree, we fight fair. Or even when we disagree, we still think the best of each other. I can trust them implicitly because they show up on time. They follow through with what they say they're going to do. They're responsible. I've watched this person with their other family members and they're respectful and they're polite and they're patient and kind, right? Those are the things you have on a list. You do not have on the list charismatic, there's just a feeling I can't describe. Never on the list. Do you see where I'm going here? Yeah. Oh, you having an aha moment right now? I hope so. So again, go back and listen to the trauma bonding episode because I get way deep on that. But I really want you to start noticing the health or unhealth of who you're choosing. So again, following your gut means, or you're making the quote unquote right choice. That's how you know, is this too soon to date? When you're on those when you're thinking about dating, How does it feel? Now, you might be a little afraid or apprehensive. That's okay. Like that client I just mentioned, that's okay. But we work, as we talked through that, we were really identifying the things he was afraid of and sort of showing how those weren't necessarily real things, that those were things his mind was making up in his fear-based brain. And that leads me to the third or could be the second for you if you don't have a therapist, the last way that you know if you're ready to start dating, even if you're still in therapy and still in the healing process, because I think we're all always in the healing process. Notice who you start chatting with or who approaches you. If your boundaries get trampled right away, you're not ready because you're attracting the wrong people. And again, that's sort of what I was saying before with the person who wrote into me who got groomed and was sexually assaulted and then said, oh, these people want to show me porn, even though I've made a boundary that I don't watch porn. That's not just a boundary. He said, it's a trigger for me. It's really bad for me because of this reason. And people are still like, hey, want to watch it? This person, I would say, is not ready to date. They shouldn't be dating right now. They should be working on those beliefs and who they're attracting, and they should be working on themselves and feeling worthy of love, worthy of worthy of love. To me, boils down to that you don't have to do anything. It's just who you are, to be cherished, to be respected, to be valued. That who you are as a human is plenty. You don't have to do things for them. You don't have to run around town and find their favorite cookie. You don't have to cook special meals. I mean, those are all very nice things. But if you're doing those because that's the only way you feel like you deserve how nice this person is to you or how kind they are or how much they cherish you, that's a problem. Because now we've made the relationship transactional. When we say transactional, we're talking about that we have to give something to get something. We call it a transaction, right? When you go pay for something in a store, I'm buying this box of cereal, and tell I love cereal, and I'm giving you this money. That's a transaction, we call it, right? It's a transaction. Here's this, if a person comes to clean your house and you pay them, that's a transaction. It's a transactional relationship. Therapy is a transactional relationship. You are paying me for this time with my expertise to talk, right? And believe it or not, you and I have a transactional relationship, even though you're out there not paying me, which is fine. I always ask that you do something to support me in some way and the relationship that we have, because relationships are reciprocal. So what can you give? And it doesn't have to be money, but it could be that you like a video or you comment under it, or you might buy a mug from my website or a book or something, but you can do lots and lots. There's more things you can do for free than to pay. So subscribing to my channel, getting downloads for the podcast. And if you're on Apple, by the way, it no longer does that automatically. So please go into your settings and change that to automatic downloads for me. But do you know what I mean? All that is on some level transactional. I am doing this thing and you give back. Now, it's not completely, because you might not give back at all to me, which is really fine. And you're still getting, do you know what I mean? But I would even say to you that I would really look at that. If that's how you are in our relationship, like I should just receive. I had someone recently who left a 2-star review on my podcast. By the way, if you haven't reviewed the podcast yet, please do with 5 stars if you love it. But I think we've had only 5-star reviews, but maybe a couple 4s. But this person left 2 because they were pissed about the ads. I just started adding ads this last season. I've been doing the podcast for 6 years, 5 years with nothing, no ads, no nothing. And I'm like, I'm coming out of my own pocket, paying for everything. I was just like, you know what? It's really time. And it's really, again, for you to just sit back and not think, I hope when you watch the ads, if they come up for you or you listen to them, that, don't be pissed. Be like, oh, I'm so glad I'm helping Abby right now. She's doing this huge, wonderful thing for me. She's spending hours a week preparing and having something that's so useful. And I'm really glad that she makes some money off some ads. You should be glad about that. You should be happy that that's a way you contribute. There you go. It is transactional. If you're listening or watching, right? That you contribute back to me. How wonderful. Think of clicking through. I think I get more money. I don't know, but it's okay if you don't. I'm just saying. So this one person left a 2-star review because And she literally said, I had to listen to 2 minutes of ads. And I thought, wow, I gave you an hour of free content and you had to listen to 2 minutes and you're upset? Because she even said, love the podcast, but not the ad. And I thought, I felt bad. I felt, not for me, not that of what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything wrong. I felt bad that that's a world this person lives in, that they couldn't even see that it's a beautiful thing, that, that they're getting all this value and they love the podcast. Why aren't they happy about watching an ad? Why aren't they happy that I'm making money from it? Why aren't they happy that that's happening also? And I would, really ask you about how you're dealing. If you're just receiving, it gets in a really funky place and you start to feel entitled, like this person. That's entitlement. Like, I shouldn't even have to give up 2 minutes of my time. I should not give a thing, and you should just give to me. It's entitlement, and it's something we don't always notice, but it's important to notice because we're living in our world in an unhealthy way. We're not living in the love. This is a love relation. I got to tell you, whatever money I might make, it ain't. I could be making a lot more money if I just charged hourly for my time. This is about love. I love you. I know you feel it. That's why we keep growing. That's why you keep listening. Because I really do. I really, really do. There's no two ways about it. I need you to love yourself, though. If you could love yourself as much as I do, if you could see yourself as worthy as I see you, you would be really attracting and going on dates with people who are at a higher level, who can love you the way you need to be loved, who can see you for who you are, who can understand you, who want to understand you, who want to get to know you. That's the person. So if you're going on dates and that's not happening, and you keep having someone like this guy trying to trample your boundaries, or like that guy on my date who started trying to push drinks on me, then right away you're like, whoops, I don't know what I did here, but I attracted the wrong person. Let me get out. Let me get out and let me refresh. Let me kind of relook. I want you to see these as times to look at yourself, and not to blame yourself, not to blame the victim, not to judge yourself, but to look lovingly at yourself and go, okay, am I doing my morning practice? Am I aligning my values? Am I aligning my conscious and my subconscious? Am I practicing what I preach? Am I really integrating something? Do I believe it or do I just know it? What do I have to do to know it, right? To believe it, sorry, because I just know it, And again, I've got lots of resources to do all this, but free or paid, whatever you want, but there's lots of resources. So those are the three things I really want you to look at to know that you're ready to date. Okay, so it really is about you, and you really do have the power. And it is okay if you're not ready. Don't push yourself past where you are. And you might be like a lot of my clients who feel like they're never going to be ready. So then it's okay to try to put your toe in the water and see what happens. Do you completely lose it? Do you lose yourself? Do you end up with people who you don't like on these dates? What's happening? And that's a way to really know, oh, maybe I'll take my toe back out. But then I hope you don't just go back to therapy, that you instead think, maybe it's therapy, maybe it's a different therapist, maybe it's a different kind of therapy. Maybe it's, I don't know, working out, maybe like praying, joining a monastery. I don't know, it could be a million things, but I want you to kind of look back and think, oh, well, what could I do to sort of raise my vibration, to sort of raise where I am in the world? What kinds of things could I be doing for that? That's what I want you doing with that. So this isn't ever about judging yourself. This isn't ever about blaming the victim. This isn't ever about any of that. It's about truly seeing yourself for where you are and hopefully believing in yourself where you are, that, because that you're worthy of being cherished. I cherish you. I cherish this relationship so, so much. I do. It's why I keep doing this. We're going to be ending our 6th season in July, and I'm recording this in April. I mean, I can't even believe that that's happening. It's been so many years of doing this, and if you don't think it's out of love, I don't even know what to tell you. I know you do know it. It's this just, I know you can do this. I know you will feel happier and more connected to yourself and others on the other side. And I know that's what you deserve. All right. So that is it for this week. As always, thank you so much. If you've listened to the end, I love it. I love that you're here. I love hearing from you. If you like the podcast, think of signing up for my weekly love letter. It is not a sales letter. Those of you who are on it know it is not. I don't market on it. I don't sell you anything. It's a once a week little story or something to get you thinking or help you feel inspired. It's short, it's a few minute read, and it's really meant, I do it again because I love you. It's meant to help point you in the right direction every week. And I know, and I have, there's a lot of people on that list who really love it. And I know you would too if you like the podcast. So, and I don't make any money off the list. It is just something I love doing to try to help you. So that is it. Have an amazing week. Mwah. I love you. Thank you so much for being here with me. And I will talk to you so soon.